Untamed.
Welcome to the podcast, people. Martin Devlin, Lachlan War, iOS, It's Only Sport. That's the name of our show, the only independent daily radio sports program in this country. Today, reaction to the naming of Scott Robertson's first All Black squad. Justin Marshall cast his expert eye over that for us today. Then we went to South Africa for a review from our biggest and most traditional rivals. Does this squad induce fear into the back-to-back world champions? And if not, why not? The ATM podcast, episode 89, Mark Watson, plenty to say. And not only just about the All Blacks, we talked a little bit about Sky Sports coverage of the Super Rugby final, about his Blues finally getting over the hump, and of course, the woeful Warriors as well. LBP, Matt Gunn, was positive out of Twizel. Big afternoon, live sport went on, Stanley Cup and T20 cricket with the Afghanis trying to make that semi-final. We spoke with Daniel Halangahu, assistant coach of the Blues, about the influence of Vern Cotter. And it's very obvious because he's been able to take this team to a level that previous coaches, including Leo McDonald, Tana Umaga, were unable to do. So exactly what did he bring to this team to enable them to reach, again, that level that the other coaches couldn't? Daniel Halangahu, just really quietly, softly spoken man, very, very thoughtful man. It was great to have him on the program today. European Football Championships and Italy with a last gasp goal. They sent Croatia packing today. Fred de Jong was all over that. We begin the show the same way every day. Tablets in hand, I say gather my flock. It is time for a sermon. Herald the first All Blacks squad of the year. Yahoo! Let's go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
The All Blacks have been named 5 new caps and a new captain, 32 players in the initial squad to play England and Fiji. And let's make that clear. Kane, Samasoni, Will Jordan, Roy Gard were all named as guys not available because of injury, meaning if and when they're fully fit, they'll be included, which means some of the names named yesterday will drop out. It's an enormously exciting occasion for everyone involved, players, families, friends, supporters. I can't even imagine the sheer thrill, the relief, the exhilaration that must course through the veins after hearing the coach call your name. Life-changing for the newbies. Then after all that, people like me in jobs like this pause, look at the squad and start thinking in terms of how strong it is and the potential it has, and is this playing group better than that selected for the Rugby World Cup from last year? Are we going to improve? Where? How will we be better? Can these guys go one step further and dominate the best in the world, the Saffers, the Irish, the French, even the English? Because to me, this squad still looks, I don't know, a little smallish. Are these loose forwards going to physically match a major opposition? Is Super Rugby sufficient enough in terms of test match preparation? Will the same players who have lost a lot of test matches these last few years be so much better now that we can improve enough to become the world's best team again? Because we aren't that. We aren't the world's best team. We haven't been for a number of years now. Even though we got close at last year's World Cup, 2021 we lost to South Africa, Ireland and France. 2022 we lost 4 games and drew with England when we had a huge lead with 10 minutes to go. Last year we lost 3 times. So it's 10 losses in 3 years, plus a draw in there. That's not a champion All Black side. And most of the mainstream media just seem to gloss over that. So we've got plenty to prove, and we've got a hell of a lot upon which to improve. But today's not that day. Right now, it's all about the announcement and the excitement of the All Blacks being named. And I, for one, can't wait from here to see the influence of Coach Razor on how this team is going to grow, improve, and how potentially well they can play.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The platform.
God, what a weirdo I am, eh? How retro am I? Just a boomer with that kind of attitude, aren't I? 1:15, Lachlan. Before we go to Justin, what's in the headlines?
Yeah, boomer, middle-aged, white man, cis.
Yeah, grew up with the All Blacks, won World Cups, won Test matches.
Well, you are...
Scored more points than the opposition.
You are the enemy of society.
Obviously.
Yeah. A lot to get through in terms of angles out of the All Blacks team naming. First off with the coach Scott Robertson, he has admitted that leaving out Blues loose forward Hoskins Sotutu was one of the toughest calls he had to make. Last night, Robertson, of course, unveiling his first squad as All Blacks coach and the one that will take on England and Fiji in internationals in July. The 6th of July, how many days away is that? It's a week and a half away, isn't it? All Blacks test already. My goodness. We thought hard and deep, challenged myself, I guess ourselves is what he means by that as well. Looked at all the reasons why we picked players, and that's where we fell. So look, this is the thing. People will sit there and complain on Twitter and complain on socials. Maybe they'll make articles about it. I don't think they left Hoskins and Tutu out because they don't like the guy or because they just wanted to be annoying and to raise hairs among fans and other players and Hoskins and his family themselves. I would think there's a reason behind it. No, people forget that. Anyway, it's a job that he needed some time to come to grips with, but newly named captain Scott Barrett is ready to take on the captaincy job head on. Where I'm at in my career, it's a job that will probably require every bit of me. I'm hugely honoured, and I'm a deep thinker, so I want to be able to give this job my all. I did take a wee while. I guess I was taken aback by being asked to lead the All Blacks. I'm sure he did. For Hurricanes prop Pasilio Tossi, a player that many are still familiarising themselves with. Of course, loose forward, turned into a prop now in the All Blacks. There's an amusing story behind when he received the phone call from Scott Robertson. Here's what he had to say. "I just woken up and was trotting upstairs with my kids when one of them decided to throw a tantrum. Just as he was throwing that tantrum, the call came through. It was an unknown number, and normally I'm not one to pick those up. I normally just let it ring, but I quickly answered it, and it was Ray on the other side." Quite amusing. I don't know. Isn't that just really normal?
It's just normal for parenting.
Tantrums throwing.
That's just normal, yeah.
Shut up. Oh, the phone's ringing. Oh,
that's what your wife does every...
private number.
Oh, sorry. Did he say the kids?
Hey, he said the kids.
Sorry, my bad.
I don't associate myself with that comment. Adidas and New Zealand Rugby have unveiled the new jersey designs that will be worn by the All Blacks Black Ferns during the 2024 international season. They've brought the white collars back, but geez, it's like they've combined every white collar in the history of the All Blacks jersey
rather large,
and
isn't it?
stitched them together. The collars are massive.
Yeah.
Gosh.
That's something that you put on a paisley shirt and go nightclubbing in.
Yeah. There's also a squad naming for the Māori All Blacks, by the way. Former All Blacks Joe Moody, Cullen Grace, Te Toiroa Tahuri Orangi and Quinn Tupaia have been included in the side that has taken on a Japanese 15 over the next 2 weeks. Jeez, a Japanese 15. Can't they do a bit better than that? Italy's substitute Mattia Zaccani scored in the last minute of stoppage time for Italy to advance to the knockout stage of Euro 2024, drawing 1-1 with Croatia. They were crying tears of joy, the Italians. Italy needed a point to progress, which they got in the end. Croatia realistically needed a win to stay in the tournament. They've only got 2 points now. It probably won't be enough for them to be one of those higher-ranked third-place teams. Spain, meanwhile, beat Albania 1-0 to go top of Group C. They finished with 3 wins from 3. Cricket World Cup, Afghanistan chose to bat first. They are 58 without loss after 10 overs, taking on Bangladesh. A win for Afghanistan will secure their spot in the knockout phase. If they lose, I think Australia get through. If Bangladesh can win by a lot, then they may even be able to sneak into the semis. Unlikely, though. And the Los Angeles Lakers have named JJ Redick as the new head coach, a man with no experience whatsoever in coaching. He's coached little children's teams, been on ESPN a fair bit. Pretty successful player, seemingly really intelligent, knows the game well. He's the new Lakers coach. This is going to be interesting. That's what's making news, Martin.
Devlin. The platform.
The first All Blacks squad of the year. Only 3 locks. A fullback situation where you think, are these bit part players playing, or have we actually picked a specialist to play in that position? A couple of names missing out. Played well in Super Rugby, the Satutus and the Harry Plumbers of the world. Why didn't they get in? The naming of Scott Barrett as captain. Lots of discussion points. Justin Marshall, all over it for us. Justin, this is one of the greatest days in New Zealand sport, I always believe, when the All Blacks are announced and the newbies get named, and all of us numpties just, I don't know what that must feel like, but it's a life-changing experience. It must be enormously proud for everyone connected with you. You've been through this, and then I think, okay, what is the feeling when you get named again? Because there must be a mixture of relief when that happens, a hell of a lot of excitement. And it's equally rewarding as well. So just talk us through both of those experiences that you've had when you first get named, that additional adrenaline rush you get, then when you get renamed as well.
Yeah, well, obviously when you're being touted as being in the mix. You're never ever really taking that for granted, and you certainly know that if you're playing good rugby, then hopefully that you are in the conversation. But you never ever really realise that name will be read out. I think it's always one of those ones that you can never be assured of. You can never know what the coaches are thinking, and equally, like that jersey and being in that environment is something that I guess you dream of, but it's really, really hard to sort of to taper it. It's a real surreal feeling being named for the first time, and that huge sense of being, at the very, very peak of your powers, and knowing that you're hopefully going to get an opportunity to play for your country in the All Black shirt is, it's just the greatest feeling that you can have. It doesn't matter whether you are 19, 20 years old, like a John Aluma who first got named, or you're like a Frank Bunce and you're in your sort of mid to late 20s. Makes no difference, the age. It's all about that incredible privilege and that honour of walking into a very rare, esteemed club and walking in those footsteps. You just won't ever forget. I always said after my Test debut that I would have been happy and replete. We ran out there, we won at the Parc des Princes in a convincing performance. Everything went well on the day, and as an All Black, I would have quite happily hung up my boots and said, I've been there, I've done it, I've represented my family, my friends, and my country, and we've done a great job in the jersey. But then, obviously, you get that taste, and you want more and more, and you want to keep being involved, and that's what it's like when you get renamed again. Like, it never ever goes away, never dissipates, that feeling of being an All Black. It's always there, and you just want that. It's like a hunger, and I'm certainly sure that some of those All Blacks that haven't had a lot of time in the jersey in recent times, TJ Perenara, Anton Leonard-Brown, through injuries, they would be feeling exactly the same as they did when they got named for the first time, and it's great to see that they've got their opportunities again.
Looking at those halfbacks, Christy Perenara, Ratama, who's had a great season. Obviously no Roy Gard because he's still injured. And then you look at your first fives, Beauden Barrett, Damien McKenzie. What is it? Who screams out to you as the starter? Is it Christie and McKenzie in those roles, and maybe even Barrett goes back to fullback? Can you see that happening?
Yeah, well, the one thing that I did think about the squad, which I'm really pleased you touched on, was in my mind that they have named them position specifically. So I certainly feel, and I've asked that question to Razor before, and he's been asked it as well. Are you going to pick players who are position specific? That yes, they can play multiple positions, but ultimately you're going to pick a centre that plays centre. You're going to pick a wing that plays wing, not because they can play centre or 12 or whatever as well, or first five. So he's named McKenzie and Beauden Barrett. So the one area I was really surprised with. So there's not actually a fullback.
No.
And you've got players that can play there, but equally, like he has said, position specific. So that means that Beauden Barrett and Damien McKenzie, who are first fives, and McKenzie's said that he's a first five, well, they don't come into the mix as fullback. So I'm really intrigued as to where they're going to go with this, and in terms of what they're going to do when they've actually have made it quite clear that they are going to play players in the position that they've seen them playing in. And there's not been one fullback from Super Rugby that's been picked out of the entire season that fits that jersey. So I'm not sure where that balance is going to come and what they're going to do.
Yes, no Sean Stevenson, no Thatutu as well, no Plummer, probably the biggest talking points. But you're right. I mean, you're looking at Stephen Petafeta out of those outside backs as the only natural fullback, and so that means you've got to look at Beauden Barrett perhaps slotting into there as well. Did any of those guys that I've just mentioned, is there anyone that is really unlucky? Obviously, Sam Cane, Jordan, Samasoni, and Cam Rogat, as we said, can't be selected because of injury. Is there anyone else out of them? And I mentioned Plummer, Justin, and I'll only keep you for a couple more minutes. I've mentioned Plummer because, to me, the way that he played for the Blues is just so efficient. It is, no frills about it. But here's a guy that did everything right at first five, and in Test match rugby, that's okay. That's what you want. That's what you need, isn't it? Somebody who can actually just do all the things really well without making any mistakes.
Oh, for sure. And look, I totally feel that Harry Plummer was one of the reasons, particularly in the second half of the season, as we all know, once Petafeta got injured and he stepped in, that the way that he played just suited the way that Vern Cotter and that team was playing, and he fitted into it with, a consummate ease, and the way that he was able to do all the right things, make good decisions, kick his goals, make his tackles. It was faultless, and he didn't put a foot wrong. And you have to say that he was one of the reasons that they won that championship. But again, it's a big ask, isn't it? Yes, there's been some players that are bolters like Tossi and Wallace Satiti, who have been in the system, but they haven't really played a lot of rugby at the high level over a period of years. So that they're the whereas Harry Plummer has. So, look, I do appreciate the comments that you made about him, and I would say probably he's not unlucky to make the All Blacks, because I just feel that that's a step that he hasn't taken yet, in terms of hasn't probably been involved with New Zealand A. Obviously, stepping into teams outside of Super Rugby really does show your ability to be able to control things. So, again, look, Ruben Love, they obviously didn't want to take a gamble on him. He is an out-and-out fullback. For some reason, Stevenson doesn't enter into the factor as well. But there's always unlucky players out there. I think Hoskins Sotutu is pretty much like Harry Plummer, is he not? I think if you were to say the reasons the Blues went well were Harry Plummer and the way that Hoskins Sotutu played all year. But Scott Robertson has categorically said, and we had Leon McDonald on the breakdown just before I came overseas, saying we already have a game plan. That was the first thing we did. We sat down and we worked out the way that we want to play, and so then we went about picking players that are going to suit that game plan. And that's why those players have been picked, and that's why some players that have been playing well have missed out, because they don't think that they suit the game plan that they want to play.
Final thing I'll leave you with, I'm looking at the squad and I'm looking at some of the ages of some of the players, and I don't know whether they are going to be around at the next World Cup. Adi Savia would be 34 by then, for example. I mean, great player that he is, but that's a hell of a long time away. So, again, let's agree on this. This is about the All Blacks winning today and tomorrow and this year. And we've got a massive schedule with 7 huge away tests, and it's about knocking them off one by one. That's all I want. I just want to win this test match, and start from there.
Absolutely. And doing that will create the method, the confidence, and that ruthless edge to win World Cups, because you actually care about every test match, you care about every performance. And we start doing that, then World Cups will take care of themselves, because you'll go to tournaments and you'll win on tough days. You'll learn to fight for every inch and for every minute of a game, simply because you want to do it every week, rather than just try and peak at a certain stage. And I certainly hope that's the mindset. In fact, I know that will be the mindset of Scott Robertson. He absolutely loves winning, and I certainly feel that infectious nature of the way that he coaches will filter into all the players, and we'll see a high level of consistency in the time that he's got the coaching realm for the All Blacks.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full.
We need to talk.
Quick fire questions.
We need to talk.
In no particular order.
Next!
Unlucky to miss out. There's always players, Lachlan, that are unlucky to miss out. Who's the unluckiest out of Sotutu, out of Plummer, out of whoever else you want to drag? Ruben Love in there.
Well, Ruben Love's on the he's a reserve, or first reserve, whatever they want to call it. Sean Stevenson's an interesting one. Is he too injured to be selected? Because they didn't mention that he wasn't considered due to injury, but no one's really talking about Sean Stevenson.
And also, look, when you consider that fullbacks are either Perifeta, who has played there and number 10, or Beauden Barrett, who's played number 10 and 15. So, Stevenson, look, if Will Jordan was fit,
he'd be the fullback. Now, this is the thing. Stevenson embodies more so the style that Will Jordan plays than Perifeta or Barrett. Much more expansive and a real good ball runner.
And that's how the All Blacks are going to have to play.
Well, you'd think it. Assuming the All Blacks are going to resemble what Razor's Crusaders look like. So
the Sean Stevenson question has been perplexing, and is always, because you kind of just feel, without knowing what else is going on there, why can't this guy be selected consistently for the All Blacks?
Next!
9 and 10. Who's your starters against England?
I love combinations. And Damien McKenzie's probably the 10, right?
Has to be.
So then the 9, I'd like to be Cortez Ratama.
But it's going to be Christie.
It probably will be Christie, which is also fair enough because Christie's been in the team before. He's been in the camp before, and he in recent years. Not that really matters under a new coaching regime, I guess. But I've always been a big fan of Ratama's ever since he had a really good game off the bench for the Chiefs last year in the opening round against the Crusaders.
Okay, so another question: when Roygard comes back, who drops out of those three? Is it TJ or is it
TJ?
Cortez?
I think it's
TJ.
Next!
Nothing against TJ, but it's purely a. For me, there's a hint of this is the start of a new World Cup cycle.
It's got to be. Yeah.
You got to look to the now, but a bit to the future as well.
Okay, so if those are our 9 and 10, then who starts at fullback? Because if you put Barrett at fullback, then you actually open up a position on the bench, you see, because Barrett can cover for McKenzie if he gets injured. McKenzie can go to fullback. You see what I mean?
Yeah. So,
Barrett is a safer
Perifeta's on the bench.
This is the
thing.
Is Beauden Barrett ahead of Stephen Perifeta when it comes to starting at either 10 or 15?
Yes, because he's started.
Has to be. I'm talking about right now.
Yes, but he started big. This is the thing. How much of it are you in a position of developing the players as opposed to winning tests? So you want to win the test, don't you?
You want to win the test match.
You want to win the test. If you want to win the test, you've got to go with the best option at each position.
Next.
The best option at 15 is probably Beauden Barrett.
Locks is 3 enough. Because to be honest, as good as Patrick Tuipulotu is and Tupuvai is, neither of them have really over-impressed on the international stage.
No, Tuipulotu was a bit unfortunate because he was always behind.
Well, look at our locking combination over
Brodie
the last
Retallick
7, 8,
Sam
10 years. The two best in the world since 2015 were Retallick and Sam Whitelock.
To be fair, before those two became our starters, who were our consistent starters? For a little while, it was Ellie Williams and Brad Thorne. And then you had Chris Jack thrown in the mix. You had that tall Highlanders player. What was his name? He was actually really good, but I think he didn't play much. James Ryan was his name. But
a bunch of players. Is 3 enough?
No, 3's not enough.
3's not enough.
But then again, I mean, it's like picking 6 loose forwards. 1 or 2 of those guys is not going to play at all over these 3 tests.
Next.
So do you actually need 4?
Final question: is the right guy selected as captain?
Well, I think so because the coach has picked him.
That's exactly the answer I wanted to hear. Now, if he had picked Ardie Savea and I ask you the same question, I want that answer back. I trust you, Scott Robertson.
Well, I'm not
You've had a long time to think about this, mate.
But I'm not going to sit there and act like I know more about
any
rugby.
Media tosser who's sitting there questioning this at the moment and throwing in the weakest argument ever. Oh, pundits think Ardie should. But go to Scott Robertson and stare him in the eye and ask him.
Yeah.
He's got a hell of a lot of good reasons why he selected that guy. It's no disrespect to Ardie. Ardie's the vice captain, but Ardie's been captain before. Scott Barrett, I think, had to be the captain. He's the guy that Razor trusts the most, knows the most.
He knows him well. He's won Super Rugby titles with him as his captain. Yeah. And Justin Marshall made a really good point, actually, where he said you've got to have the captain on side with the coach and vice versa. And there's clearly been conversations or discussions between those two where very much so, Scott Robertson has felt that the guy who's most on side of me and I can trust the most as my captain is Scott Barrett.
The naming of the All Blacks. Now, traditionally, you would think that this would be big news in South Africa with the Springboks, of course, our most major rivals in world rugby. Are they gasping? Are they in fear? Does that squad make them shudder like a dog doing raisins? Why not, if that's the case? And really, why wouldn't it be big news in the Republic? You may be surprised at what you're about to hear from Andy Capostagno, Supersport commentator. You'd think that they would have as much attention on what we do as we are obsessed about what they do. Not so. You hear that sound in the background? That sound, if we listen closely, that sound there is the sound of fear from South Africa and South African rugby after hearing that All Black squad named yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. We're trembling, and it's obviously front page news in South Africa. It's taken over from the government of national unity.
Look, okay, let's just park the fact that you might have won a World Cup, or maybe even back-to-back you won those World Cups. Look, this is clearly a sign, though, from Scott Robertson, isn't it, and his selectors, I think, of a style and a way the All Blacks are going to play. Because, let's be honest, mate, we're not going to out-bulk you, and there's no way that we should even try to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. What I have to tell you up front is that whereas we used to know intimately all of the fringe players that might be pulled into an All Black squad. Those days have gone. With the end of Super Rugby, we've now just concluded our third year in the URC. And so we know the fringe players from Ireland and from Wales very well, but we're less up to date with what's going on in New Zealand, and I still think that that's what Razor is going to have to come to terms with over the next 4 years leading up to the World Cup. Is that what happens in New Zealand is no longer big news in South Africa. They're kind of over it.
Wow. Ouch. I mean, but understandable because, yeah, your eyes are on another prize. You're watching other players. You're watching other competitions every week. So what we're saying is that the Super Rugby competition doesn't register at your place anymore.
Well, it becomes absolutely fundamental because through all of the years of Super Rugby, when South African rugby was not playing well generally, people kept saying we must play more like New Zealand because we watched your provincial competitions and we saw your teams coming to South Africa and we loved that open rugby that you played. Now that we're competing in Northern Europe, we're adopting that tighter style that has always been the way that rugby has been played in Northern Europe. And of course, that suits South Africa right down to the ground. And you can probably plot the course of winning those 2 World Cups on the basis that suddenly there weren't people constantly saying we must play like New Zealand. Now people are saying we must play like Ireland. And in fact, Ireland are saying we must play like South Africa because one thing that I'm very fortunate with here in South Africa is that I do a lot of schoolboy rugby, and this coming week I'm doing the under-20 World Championships down in Stellenbosch and Cape Town. So you're going to see the best young players in the country on a regular basis, and I'll tell you the fallout from South Africa winning 2 World Cups is that the talent that is available is just astonishing. In my 30 years in South Africa, I've never seen anything like it, and I'm not going to say 4 years out that it'll be 3 in a row, but you're going to have to play well to beat us.
Andy Capostagno with us, good old mate, a friend of the show, and called it for Super Sport for many years. Just in terms of where your mind is at and what you are looking at, none of this being out of Super Rugby has seem to have any kind of detrimental effect on the way that your players play and how good they have got and where they are playing anywhere in the world. Like this whole thing about, we just panic in New Zealand about, oh my God, all our players are leaving. What say they're overseas? Everything else. None of this seems to have bothered you guys. You've just got on with it.
Well, it hasn't been as simple as that because if you go back 20 years, we were in exactly the same position where the administrators were saying, if you play overseas, we won't pick you for the Springboks. What happened, of course, was the economic crash of 2007, 2008 meant that you just couldn't keep your best players in the country. If somebody offered them euros or pounds to go and play, they were going to go. And New Zealand has got to face that fact. Sooner rather than later. You can't just keep coming with this, no, well, we can't pick him because he's playing in Japan. We can't pick him because he's playing in France. You've got to pick your best side. If you think that you're going to compete at international level now, you can't just cut off your nose to spite your face. South Africa went through it. They've come out the other side. And the real benefit of our players playing all over the world is that they're no longer stuck up their own arses. They're no longer worried about playing the Springbok style. They're worried about playing a game that is going to win against the best teams in the world.
The Tight Five.
Let's talk about that, Lachlan. What's going to happen there? I mean, if you're Bangladesh cricketer, of course you want to win this game. But the double-edged sword is: do you really want Australia to go through to yet another semi-final again? Italy, like Hungary yesterday, saved the very best till last. 9 minutes of added on time, and that strike killing Croatia's European dream. The All Blacks have been named. What do you reckon is going to be where we sit at the end of the year, clumsy way of saying how many matches are we going to win, how many matches are we going to lose. We play 15 test matches, 7 of them away from home. Is this squad good enough to go through the whole year unbeaten? Game 7, they say it's the 2 greatest words ever in American sport. 12 times in NHL. A team has come back from 0-3, but 11 of those times they've lost the game 7. Florida Panthers have never won the Stanley Cup. They're up 2-1 with a period to go here in Florida against the Edmonton Oilers. Seinfeld last night, I will talk about. And SJ out for 4 weeks. Let's start with that. Shaun Johnson out for 4 weeks. Well, my mail is that he won't be playing for the rest of the year. My mail is also that Addin Fonua-Blake needs to leave the squad. Now, whether or not that's going to happen, we'll just wait and see. Whether either of them are going to happen, let's wait and see. Kind of convenient that Shaun's got the injury because I reckon he would have been dropped this weekend anyway. He's not playing well. Whether that is because he's been handicapped by the injury. But changes have to be made. And Andrew Webster's hand's going to be forced tonight. But lucky for him, this one is a lot easier to PR, isn't it? Oh, Shaun's injured, he's not going to play. Okay, we can't pick him because his hamstring's flared up again. Because dropping the guy makes for a huge distraction and discussion point. The Warriors media machine, the social media all around it, it just sugarcoats everything, covers it in treacle. All the stories about Fonua-Blake being a disruptive teammate, we're getting these loud and clear. The person who I've received my information off, I absolutely believe why this person talked to me and told me about it. They're very high up in the administration of the Warriors, and this guy needs to get gone. Shaun Johnson, Addin Fonua-Blake, if you're a Warriors fan, these guys are not going to be part of this team in any major way, I don't believe, by the end of this season. Neither of them. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying it's a thing, Lachlan.
All right. I can't exactly say you're wrong because I'm not going to sit here and act like that I know more about the situation than your source. But I think for the case of Shaun, I think he would have been picked for another couple of weeks if he wasn't injured, until assuming that they started to really chalk up quite a few losses, and then it got to a point where you have to change something to your key players. For Addin Fonua-Blake, now he's going anyway.
Yeah, get him gone.
So
now.
It's a case of, does the club decide to release him early? Which seemed like it was on the cards a month or so ago. And then they started winning games, and then all of that sort of got put to bed about him, the rumblings, wanting to leave the club early. So,
look, when a guy wants to leave, he's already signed to leave. You know, there's a poison that starts to happen, doesn't it?
Well, how can you trust them? Well, and it's not a dig about a player's, in this case, Addin's commitment to the team, but if you're playing for a team, and his situation is particularly like this, if you're playing for a team where the team you're going to is winning, is playing well, they're in the top 8, and they're in the top 4 comfortably at the moment, and you're on a team that isn't even in the 8, struggling, it's a far cry from what you achieved last year, why on earth would you put in all of your effort? Now, there's people out there who are decent human beings who hold themselves to a high standard and do their work to the best of their ability no matter what. And I just would think it'd be hard for anyone, even the most wonderful people in this world, to be able to hold themselves to that standard, knowing you could get injured, knowing, I don't know, what if something goes horribly wrong?
Human nature in any workplace, we've all been around people that are going, and the last few bits and pieces of time that they are there are never really that great because their minds are elsewhere. In terms of Fonua-Blake, that thing that happened after the Penrith game where he didn't stay and just the cover-up that happens with his management team and the way that the Warriors tried to sell it, that he's so emotional and so hurt by it that he didn't want to stay around his teammates, it's just horse poop is what it is. It is absolute horse poop. There's a hell of a lot more that went on there, and most of it was ugly as. And that's what I've been told. And, you know, for this guy, and I've got nothing against him personally, this is just absolute business to me. If you've got a guy that is poison in your team, is toxic and is unpredictable and inconsistent as he is,
well, you'd get rid of them now. You do everything to preserve
and that's what,
that locker room.
That's it. And this is where I'm looking for Andrew Webster and Cameron George and saying, this is yours, okay? It's an easy decision to make. Get rid of the guy. No disrespect to the guy. Get rid of him.
Theoretically, you don't want him because of the potential damage he's causing.
He is causing. This is what I've been told by somebody who is absolutely And I can't reveal who this person is, but I have been told this from somebody who actually works with him every day.
Yeah. And there's that. The bloke doesn't want to be there because he tried to get a release last year, not after 2024. He tried to get a release early, and they negotiated for him to stay around 2024, but he's going to Croatia next year, so he's out the door anyway. So if both parties essentially don't want him, or you put the pieces together, they shouldn't want him, well, why would they keep him around? Why would the Warriors keep him around? Why would he happily keep playing? Well, I don't know if he is happily playing, but why would the Warriors keep him around?
Euros, Italy like Hungary yesterday. We're going to talk to Fred de Jong about this in about 10 minutes. The very last minute of added on time. Football is just an incredible sport, isn't it? You want to see the expression on the faces of both of these teams with a minute to go. Luka Modric for Croatia, knowing what's at stake. They concede this goal. They're out of the tournament. The Italians on their knees, bags packed. They were already going home. And then they equalise. And now they're through to the second round. It's just, it happens so often these days in football. And they're added on time where it's 8 or 9 minutes extra because it's not a 90-minute game anymore. But we saw it with Hungary yesterday. It's just the cruelest thing that can happen in sport. It's the most glorious thing that can happen in sport.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that I'm watching it and I don't have a commitment to either country because it would just be a nightmare, wouldn't it?
It's incredible because it's always football.
It happens in basketball, it happens in baseball, but it happens a lot in football.
It just happened at all these tournaments. At the World Cup, we saw it a lot in 2018 and 2022 in particular. We saw it, of course, at the Euros, and so far at this tournament so much. It happens in the Champions League so much. Just these last-minute dramas, these equalisers. For a sport that widely gets criticised by people who aren't fans of it for being boring, it's a damn entertaining sport. It's damn dramatic, I tell you what.
What's going to happen? Afghanistan 115 for 5, sitting Bangladesh 116. Match delayed by a wet outfield. Ooh, okay. All right. That adds another
wrinkle,
extra piece of intrigue to this, doesn't it? Because if it does finish and they both get a point, well, Afghanistan go through, okay?
Well, good.
Well, we all want them to go through, don't we?
Do we?
Or do we want the Australians just to be in there purely because of what the psychological damage it's going to do to South Africa, who are waiting?
Oh, if Australia get through, I'm putting $50 on them to win the whole World Cup.
Well, you'd think so, wouldn't you?
Straight away. Because they're taking on the team. They are the perennial winners of cricket, taking on the team who are the perennial chokers.
That's it, yeah.
No, yeah. I'd expect, I don't know, I'd expect Afghanistan to be able to defend that, but I don't know. Because there's actually been some pretty wild totals in this tournament, up and down and whatnot, so who knows?
It's not a lot. You think about a game of T20 cricket. India put on 205 against Australia in the wee small hours this morning. Australia 181 in return. So it's almost 400 runs. These guys are struggling to get over 100. We'll keep you updated, people. Game 7. 2-1 to Florida over Edmonton here. Again, I've got no skin in this game at all. I'm not a nice hockey...
What period is it?
Third period, 16 minutes to go. Florida have never won the Stanley Cup, so it's a great story either way. They lost in the final last year to the Vegas Golden Knights. And Edmonton, the Canadians haven't won it since...
93.
Yeah, Wayne Gretzky was playing, I suppose.
I think... and the Oilers haven't won it since 1990.
Something like that. But to come back from 0-3 to win 4-3, it's the most impossible ask in sport, isn't it? I remember watching the Red Sox do it back in 0-4 in the baseball to the Yankees. And they won a couple of those games, and they were 3-0 down. They won a couple of them, which went into extra innings. One of them went way past midnight till 1 a.m., and then they were back there that same day and things. It's just... the momentum shift and watching things unravel. It's quite incredible. I just think it'd be a great story. That's all I'm interested in. I'm just into the romance of the story. I don't really mind who wins this game.
No, I couldn't care less. I mean, there's a bit more... I think for casual fans of the NHL, there's more liking probably towards the Oilers because that was the Wayne Gretzky team that was so dominant in the 80s. And it had, who's the other guy? Mark Messier?
Yeah, Messier,
was really good as well.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll be like, oh, it'd be cool to see them win it again. And also because they're Canadian. But then other than that, I don't mean to be rude, I don't care. I'm not an ice hockey fan.
All Blacks have 15 test matches, 7 of them away from home. And, Italy and Australia are in that. Couple against the Yarps, England, Ireland, France.
I've got it here, yeah. England, Fiji, Argentina, South Africa, Japan, Australia before Japan. And then England, Ireland, France, Italy.
Do remember that this is a squad named to play England twice and Fiji as well in San Diego. So there are 4 players that were named who I think you've got to keep those guys in the back of your mind. Samasoni, Sam Cane, Will Jordan, Cam Roy Gudd. The fact that those guys were named yesterday says to me that if they are fit, those guys are back in the team.
Those
squad.
four, yes. Yeah. I think they would be.
More so than the Ruben Loves and so forth who've been added.
because they are essentially injury cover.
Yeah, okay.
If someone's injured, one of them gets put in the squad.
So when they actually say these four can't be selected because of this, I would expect those names to be back in. And so then you can figure out, okay, who's going to be left out because of that. How many matches are the All Blacks going to win this year? How many tests might we lose? I think we're going to lose 3. I think we're going to lose to South Africa. And I think we're going to struggle up there in the Northern Hemisphere to win back-to-back games against those teams.
If we, just quickly, do you know the name of this series with England and Fiji? It's 1 series apparently. It's called the 2024 Steinlager Ultra Low Carb Series.
Oh, for God's sake.
Ultra Low Carb.
Yeah, okay,
No, I think, well, if you're saying 3, then out of the 2 South African tests and then the away test to England, Ireland and France, we're winning 2 of those. So what 2 of those do we win?
One against the Alps, I'm hoping.
You reckon we get one against the Alps?
I'm hoping we square that one, yeah.
And then we get one against England, Ireland or France on the road.
I think it's going to be enormously difficult to win even 2 of those 3.
I think we lose 4. I think we lose to Ireland and France and we lose both to South Africa. I think we beat England all 3 times.
The European Football Championships. And over the next couple of days, it's all about jockeying for position, trying to get yourself into the round of 16. Top 2 in each group qualify. Then it's the 4 best third-place sides. Well, once again today, just like we did yesterday when Hungary snatched at the death from Scotland, we saw Italy. They were gone. Bags were being packed, put on the bus, catching the plane. Oh, hang on. Hold the phone. 98th minute, a wonder strike, and the Italians rescue their European Championships. Remember, they are the defending champs. Happiness for them, and the exact opposite for anyone connected to Croatia. Fred de Jong, the former All-White, was watching it. Fred, Forza Italia!
Don't you just love the sport? Don't you just love the Euros, mate? Oh,
football bloody hell, Sir Alex said when Solskjaer scored against Bayern in 1999, very famously. Mate, you know, this 10 minutes of added on time, or 8 or 9 minutes, we saw it yesterday when Hungary may have propelled themselves into the round of 16. Croatia were, a minute and change away from making it there as a second-place team, and Italy break their hearts with a brilliant goal in, the 98th minute.
Yeah, and I mean, the addition of the extra time, like this 8-9 minutes that we see nowadays, I think it's really good because it just stops. We saw a lot of the play acting during the second half after Croatia scored, with the time it took to take 3 kicks and that. And it's only fair that the opposition get the opportunity, to play, to get that time back. And I think that's one of the better innovations that has come into football over since the last World Cup, basically. So, but man, it's that is emotion at its best. Sport, I've got to say, it was just insane. And it just popped a fairy tale for Luka Modric, but for the Italians, man, that a guy to score his first international goal like that, to take his team through, unreal.
And just the calmness and the composure at that stage. I mean, you know what that finish is like, opening your body up. You can only aim for the top corner there. He's probably not going to beat the keeper at the near post, is he? He's got to lift it. He's got to get it exactly right. And he's hitting it first time as well.
Absolutely. And also, like, when you look at Calafiori, the number 5, the centre-back, the way he carries the ball through the middle of the park, he's a centre-back, and then he just lays this ball perfectly for the winger for Sukanya to bend it. And as you say, you got to open your body out, the technique and all that, but and to do that for your first goal, man, that is special. That is so special. And for Italy, I mean, man, they were going home.
Yeah,
they were out.
How was that? Yeah,
and so possibly Croatia. Then possibly they could have gone through with 3 points, but probably not. So now they book a place against Switzerland, which is not going to be an easy game either, because the Swiss are good.
Fred de Jong, former All-White, is with us. We're talking about the Euros, and it seems that, like, at this stage, and this is what I love about it as well, that since the Austrian-German Peace Pact of 1982, Fred, we remember that game, don't we? That playing these last group matches simultaneous, so there's nobody can actually kind of contrive a result. Argentina, Peru springs to mind in 1978, of course. But let's focus on the team that wins the group and this bitter scrap for second spot or the one of the best placed third placed teams. In Italy, we've seen it over the years. Fred, I remember in 1982 they won the World Cup. They were scratchy and patchy. They get through the group stage and they don't actually play that well. But this is the measure of a team that wins tournaments, isn't it? You've got to improve as it goes along.
Yeah, I agree. I think Italy, they came into this game, they wanted a point. They played the first 45 minutes to hold a point, and they looked average, and the game was average. As soon as Croatia score, you actually see what Italy can do. They for probably 10 minutes, they just pounded away, probing and probing and probing. And then it looked like Croatia had weathered the storm. But as you say, this is the beauty of, yes, the simultaneous kickoffs for both these to finish the group. I do think the third place qualifying thing gives teams another out, which is not perfect, because we saw in the last World Cup how the changing of those second place teams positions went. In the final stages of the group games, which was crazy at times, where three teams were in, they're out, they're in, they're out, as goals went in. But yeah, the simultaneous kickoffs is one of the best innovations in this tournament play. But yeah, I got to say, the third place qualifiers, 24 is not a great number.
No, it's not. Well, let's not make it 32 though, please. I mean, come on. I mean, of course they will, Fred.
Of course they will. They've sold the whole thing out.
Yeah,
of course they will.
It's just, and the next World Cup's got 148 teams. I mean, it is bloody ridiculous. But the thing I like about the Euros...
Also 25 players on the bench, mate.
Yeah, I like
26 players on the bench. You've got 15 subs. How big do you want the tournament to be? The guy making the benches, he's got a career for life now.
ATM, apologise to me. Mark Watson joins us every Tuesday, episode 89 of the ATM podcast. We spoke today about the Blues. Finally, doing what they haven't been able to do for 21 years, the naming of the All Blacks, the Warriors, amongst many other topics. Watto, always forthright with his opinions. He is honest, very thoughtful, but never afraid to dish it when it needs to be dished. No sacred cows in Mark Watson's sporting world. Watto, welcome, and let's talk about your Blues, mate, because all year we've had the doubts about whether this team could actually go the one step further that they haven't been able to. And I put... and give a lot of the credit to Vern Cotter, who's come in from, coaching in the Northern Hemisphere. He hasn't had that carpet ride that a lot of former All Blacks get in New Zealand coaching. He's earned the right to be this coach, and more than that. And he's changed the way the team has played and got them to be a lot more pragmatic, go away from the frilly-nillies kind of throw the ball everywhere style, and he's actually created a champion team. So, they're worthy winners, are they not?
Yeah, 100%, and I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think so much of the success needs to go to Vern Cotter. And just to your other point, I think it just demonstrates too that maybe we elevate our former All Blacks to coaching roles far too quickly. And I think what Vern Cotter's shown us is maybe just some of the deficiencies that Leon MacDonald maybe had as a coach. And also wonder whether if you're going to get a top coach, get one that's, a little bit more forward orientated, that may have played in that position or is a bit more of a specialist when it comes to developing forwards. Look, a really simple game plan, isn't it? For all the evolution we've seen in rugby, Vern Cotter's just taking it back to the basics, win the breakdown, win the battle up front, earn the right to go wide, and you're probably going to win the game. And we just saw this incredible intensity. Players who I just didn't rate. I never rated Ofa Tuangavasi. I never thought he was good enough to be an All Black. What a stunning season he's had. He's changed my opinion completely. We see, Hoskins Satudu, who was, a little bit, great in sort of against opposition that wasn't particularly that strong. Great when there was a lot of open running play, but you always wondered whether he had the mettle when, up against a good quality, tough opposition, and I'm not sure that he did. And I think you could say the same about Akira Ioane. But certainly under Vern Cotter, both those players just simply magnificent. And isn't it just a terrible shame that the great enigma of New Zealand rugby, Akira Ioane, finally shows what he's truly capable of, shows us that Zinzan Brook type quality, only for him to be heading off to Japan. I think, there's a bit of irony in that. But also, you go and have a look at a player like AJ Lamb, a bit of a utility type player. How good did he look at second 5'8"? And then knowing that you've got Bryce Heem coming off the bench. Harry Plummer, not the, doesn't have the brand. He's not the cover of Women's Day that perhaps you get with Damien McKenzie or those, Carter and those players that have gone before. But now, genuinely, you could say he's a genuine world-class number 10. And I think that's just been the most pleasing thing. How good has Vern Cotter been? But it also just shows that, if you want to be a great coach, you've got to actually pay your dues. I mean, Cotter's done brilliant things with Scotland, brilliant things with Fiji. He was brilliant, very successful with club rugby in France. Was part of the Bay of Plenty set up 20 years ago when they took the Ranfurly Shield off Auckland. And so, I think greater emphasis in this country needs to go on coaching. We need to spend more time on it. We're happy to let a lot of our intellectual property go overseas, which is fine, but have a plan long-term to try and bring them back to New Zealand. We owe it to the players. We owe it to New Zealand rugby. And I just get sick and tired of just former All Blacks getting elevated into these top jobs too quickly because they were All Blacks. Just because you're a great rugby player doesn't necessarily mean that you are a great rugby coach. I also just want to congratulate, I know we've been pretty tough, and we were pretty tough on it last week on the referees, but I thought Nick Berry was superb. I thought all the officiating on Saturday night was brilliant. Not just because the Blues won, I thought the communication on the field was excellent. And I don't think, we certainly weren't talking about the referee the next day. So, credit where credit's due.
Let's talk about the Warriors now, because there's a couple of aspects to this. I've been given some information over the last few days, mate, that Sean Johnson won't be seeing the season out, and there's a damn good chance Addin Whanua-Blake's exactly the same. He won't be seeing the season out either. Sean's injured. His form has completely dropped off, and how he gets back into that team, goodness only knows. But at this stage, even recovering from the injury is going to be difficult enough before the end of the season. As far as Whanua-Blake goes, everything that you've heard about the disruptive influence that he is, and the source that told me couldn't be more highly placed, mate. And so, we've heard all these rumours, and it's a bit of a Roy Keane situation at Man United, who, brilliant captain, won 7 titles in 9 years, but ended up becoming toxic to the environment. And you can't have a player like that there. The best thing that the Warriors could do is let this guy go now. Get rid of him right now.
100% agree, mate. Gone. Can't be bothered even when, at the start of the season. I don't know why people go out of their way to try and keep players in a team who clearly don't want to be here. And for whatever rationale they present, whether it be for family reasons, whether it be for greed, just get rid of them. I say that with the New Zealand cricket team. I've said that with the All Blacks. If you're not 100% into playing for that jersey, that crest, and for the fans, I don't want to know about you. If it's other motivating factors that are keeping you there, well, you're never going to get the best out of them on the field. But look, I also think Webster here, he's gone down a couple of points in my, I sort of held him in pretty high regard like most people. But, I said a couple of weeks ago, prior to the Melbourne Storm game, we learned a lot about Andrew Webster when the team was named. And, we'd had some success by finding the formula at default by having Tamati Martin at 7 and Chanel Harris-Tavita playing at 6 and Kolstad back at fullback. And, it just seemed to work. And we should stick with it. But no, Sean Johnson comes back and put him straight back in, and the attack's just not the same. That combination's not quite right, is it? With Tamari Martin, just looks a little bit out of sorts. Then we go and put Roger Tuivasa back at centre, and everyone knows if you're going to play this guy, you've got to play him at fullback. There's no point playing him anywhere else. But and then we end up, I think it was the worst performance in the history of the club. I genuinely do, going back to 30 odd years now, because, you look at the season we had last year, look at the hype around this team, you look at how the front office have got everything sorted out, the fan base, the engagement. Webster, picked up Dally M Coach of the Year last year. And then suddenly we ended up getting thumped by 60 odd points. I mean, it was just gutless, absolutely gutless. And Webster now needs to just stand up and show some balls. As I said last week, we need a coach, not a friend to the players. And whether Sean Johnson's injured or not, Shaun Johnson should be dropped. Everyone talks about him being a great player. I've never rated him as a great player. He had a great season last year and proved me wrong, but he's reverted to type this year. Great players get the best out of other players around them. Could you imagine Andrew Johns sitting there going, hey, he wouldn't accept what he was seeing on Saturday, and they would not want to let him down on the park, would they? They'd be looking across at Johns and going, no, we don't want to let him down. And you can say that about a lot of the great Australian players, but I think, they just look at, I just don't think Shaun, he's not a guy that people want to play for. Unfortunately, I'm just not sure it is. He's just a little bit flawed. You can't blame that performance completely on Shaun Johnson. I think Webster's right in terms of the forwards, and maybe that's where Aden Whanua-Blake does need to go. But Webster should be able to identify this. I think the season's gone, mate. I just can't see us coming back now.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do, though, is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The Platform.